Ukraine is attacking Russia's oil refineries, but it's not the oil that they're aiming for. What if I told you they were targeting something else? Energy, especially oil, is very important, if not the most important part of Russia's economy. Gas and oil sales account for a quarter of the Kremlin's federal budget. And with its defense spending to sustain its war against Ukraine increasing to 32% of its federal budget expenditures, it's rather critical. Due to the Western sanctions, Russia has diverted its oil exports from the EU to countries like China and India, who are still willing to support the Kremlin. But in late 2023, Ukraine began a campaign targeting Russia's oil assets. Months of attacks had little effect on Russia's economy or oil production. The damage was estimated to be in the tens of millions of dollars, a drop in the ocean of the billions of dollars the industry turns over. When Kyiv first unleashed its drones against the oil refineries, it was sporadically. Now, its new campaign is entirely different and is far more intense, sometimes hitting the same refinery several times in a short time span, like the massive Volgograd refinery, which was hit twice in a week. But if it's not working, if it's just a drop in the proverbial bucket, why does Ukraine keep attacking Russia's oil? This is a catalytic cracker. How it works, in simple terms, is that it breaks down or cracks heavy hydrocarbons so that it can be turned into gasoline and other fuel products. And Russia has a lot of crude oil to process. Catalytic crackers are not only expensive and complex, they play a crucial role in the entire refining process. Yet refineries such as Lukoil's North Sea, which is one of Russia's largest refineries, might only have a few available. So, if it breaks, as this one of two did in Nizhny Novgorod Oblast last April, it can slow or halt production entirely. But it's no big deal. A few rolls of duct tape and it's up and running, right? Wrong. The only company with the expertise and equipment to repair it is not Russian, it's American. So when Ukraine flies its drones into refineries throughout Russia, it's not targeting the oil, not exclusively. It's targeting Western technology that Russia uses. Why? I know along with my colleagues, have made this point many times, but it's about, you guessed it, sanctions. It's been widely reported how Western sanctions have paralyzed Russian airlines, right? Because they need Western components for maintenance. Similarly, due to sanctions, Russia cannot easily replace or repair the equipment in its refineries. And if they find a way to repair it, then there's a threat that another Ukrainian drone hits them and takes out another piece of equipment.
So of approximately 1 million barrels per day that have been disrupted by the August wave of drone attacks, well more than half of it should be restored before the end of September, leaving only the minority, maybe 270, 300,000 barrels per day, still offline going into October. And then there's a little tranche at the end, maybe 100, 130,000 barrels per day, that does not yet have a clear restoration timeframe.
Restriking units that have already been hit could likely lengthen that downtime. This also strains the limited expertise within Russia that is capable of doing these repairs. It becomes harder and harder for the refineries to go back to normal operation. While many view Russia as swimming in oil, half of its deposits are actually untapped, due to technological capabilities that Moscow lacks. And without Western technologies, Russia will not be able to boost its oil production. I made this point many times before, such as in this explainer on sanctions. Look, they're not a knockout punch. It's basically death by 1,000 paper cuts. In short, it's a concerted effort to inflict punishment on Russia. And look, as much as I enjoy reporting on the impact of sanctions on Russia, I can only do it thanks to our members whose monthly contribution is the backbone of our work. You can find out how to join in the description below. You may recall at the start of the full-scale invasion, the 40-mile-long Russian convoy heading to capture Kyiv was stalled by massive fuel shortages. Russia, like many, had believed Kyiv would fall within days, if not hours. When its plan for rapid advance failed, it exposed gaping vulnerabilities in Russia's logistics. Every kilometer forward, every minute longer the engines burned fuel made progress harder and shifted Russia's focus away from fighting Ukrainians to fighting for their own logistics. Today, Ukraine's attack on Russian refineries are, in some ways, intending to provoke a similar dilemma for the Kremlin by creating logistical bottlenecks that hamper Russia's economy and its ability to finance its war. So what real-world effects are we actually seeing on the ground in Russia now? Attacks deep into Russia force Moscow to distribute air defense systems further in the rear than along the front. The pressure from Ukrainian attacks on Russian energy infrastructure has contributed to sweeps of oil refineries shutting down. According to some estimates, over 1.2 million barrels of Russian oil are disrupted every day, or nearly 20% of its capacity. But sneaky Moscow classified information on oil revenues and output 3 years ago. So that means we can't paint a totally accurate picture and should take these figures with a pinch of salt. But what we do know is that over the summer, Ukraine massively ramped up drone attacks on Russian oil refineries, of which many supply Russia's fuel-dependent army. August is already a natural oil deficit in Russia because of the summer demand. While we haven't seen a fuel crisis in the military yet, it has had a direct impact on ordinary Russians. Gasoline prices have skyrocketed. Shortages are now primarily in Russia's Far East and occupied Crimea, but could expand into more regions going into autumn. Russians are waiting for hours to refuel their cars. But of course, none of these shortages are happening in Moscow or St. Petersburg. So one could speculate a side effect or a perk of these drone strikes is higher fuel prices and shortages, fomenting frustration between Moscow and the rural regions where the Russian military disproportionately recruits its soldiers. This is only the tip of the iceberg for Russia, quite literally in some ways. As winter approaches, Russian refineries shut down in the autumn to switch from producing summer diesel to winter diesel grades, which are capable of withstanding the harsh climates. But there's a problem here. Due to the current fuel shortages, Russia needs its refineries to run at maximum capacity. This means they may postpone their scheduled autumn maintenance, which could create a snowball effect. If they can't properly retool for winter diesel production, Russia may face diesel shortages during winter months. These fuel blends are critical to keep the country operating. Diesel is used by farmers, mining companies, and crucially, the army.
It's possible that they will run behind in producing those cold weather fuels. So we can expect that if refineries are slow in producing winter-grade diesel, that those fuels are likely to command higher prices this winter than they have in previous years.
Like the 40-mile column threatening Kyiv in 2022, a lot has been made of Russia's gains along the front lines. This has led to a perception that Ukraine is losing the war. But, bit by bit, Ukraine's attacks on Russian refineries could make it more and more difficult for Russia to advance.
You know, when it comes to supplying the armed forces, it seems that Moscow is going to put that priority above substantially all other. So it would really require on the Ukrainian side a reduction in the fuel manufacturing or delivery, interdicting those supplies physically in order to change the equation there.
In recent months, Ukraine has also launched drones at Russian fuel depots and terminals housing diesel and gasoline to choke military fuel supplies downstream, like this diesel pumping station in Bryansk Oblast, Western Russia, which Ukraine struck on August 29th.
And so thinking about interdicting those fuel deliveries and getting maximum bang for the buck, if you will, from limited weapon systems could be an important arrow in the quiver for Kyiv.
While Putin put on a confident show in Alaska, behind closed doors, Russian officials were eager to restore cooperation between its oil industry and the US's largest oil and gas company, ExxonMobil. Russia's exports remain strong for now, but their lack of expertise and investment, which Exxon could provide, may eventually impede the Kremlin's oil and gas industry. And while Ukraine has already proved effective in hampering Russia's oil industry, things could get even grimmer for Russia, as Ukraine has one more ace up its sleeve. So far, Ukraine has relied on long-range aerial drones to target Russian refineries. These drones are relatively cheap and far-reaching, but they lack serious firepower. But on August 17th, Ukraine unveiled its new long-range cruise missile, capable of transporting a 1,000-kilogram warhead across 3,000 kilometers. That puts in range nearly every oil refinery west of the city of Omsk.
What I think could potentially be a game changer is this new cruise missile that the Ukrainian military is rolling out called the Flamingo. So that could provide 10, 20, maybe even more times the firepower than the drones have been employing up until now. That could make a difference in how long the Russian refineries, if they are struck accurately and perhaps persistently, could be taken down offline and unable to produce fuels.
While drones are vulnerable to Russian air defense, missiles can more easily break through, meaning once again, Russia would need to weigh its air defense needs along the front line with deeper and deeper in the rear. And for Russian civilians who thus far have not directly experienced the war their country wages, this could bring it closer to home for them. The new Flamingo missile was already used for the first time on August 30th to attack a Russian intelligence outpost in occupied Crimea. So perhaps in a future video on this topic, we'll discuss the difficulties of transporting fuel to Crimea without the Kerch Bridge. Oh, good times. None of this will end the war overnight. But for Ukraine, which has less manpower and resources, this strategy to slowly bleed Russia's major revenue base and increase costs for the average Russian might prove a powerful strategy to bring an end to the war. What do you think of Ukraine's campaign so far? Could it have a serious long-term impact on Russia's military campaign? Let us know in the comments down below. If you like this video, please consider subscribing and checking out the Kyiv Independent website for the latest news on Ukraine. And if you really liked this video, then sign up as a member to help us make more videos like this and unlock benefits like our Discord channel and discounts on merch.